Oh, cool. Hello again. It's Will's weekly football roundup. Sorry I couldn't get out on Thursday. I had some personal matters and issues to sort of sort out. Those seem to be under control now. So, yeah, let's get into it. So I've got a theme and a plan lined up. I was going to have a look at the EFL with that having sort of started yesterday. However, I'm concerned that there's a bit of a gap in knowledge there, so I might have a deep dive into some of the EFL stuff in the next sort of coming weeks, as there's sort of a lot more teams to get through and sort of working out plans to how to approach that. So what I've decided to do is I have got a list of 10 footballers who are potentially going to be breakout stars in the Premier League. So when I say breakout stars, they could be known. There will be some players that are known about which haven't had a major season or a major campaign in the Premier League. That these are players that are going to have a big impact in the Prem this year, potentially as their main sort of breakout sort of season, as it were. So I've got 10 names written throughout. I'm going to apologise in advance if I butcher any of the names. So I'm going to try and go through some of the more well-known ones first, and then potentially look at sort of some of the slightly less known ones. Cool. So my first, this isn't going to be in any order of the ones I think are going to be most impactful, least impactful. These are just going to be 10 names, just in a random order. Well, yeah. So, in the first one, I've got Yankuba Minter. So, this is the winger Brighton have signed from Newcastle, sort of the Gambian winger, for, I believe, 30 million. Just 20 years old. He was on loan at Feyenoord last season. He had sort of 10 goals in 27 games with sort of, I think it's like 5 or 6 assists. Sort of very tricky, skilly winger, and if you've put that amount of money into a player, you're not having him necessarily sit on the bench. I expect him to be getting minutes, so I think he's sort of a flexible winger that could work either side, sort of to the left or to the right. How Brighton tend to use them, I've not seen them enough in pre-season yet. However, this is sort of going to be someone fun and exciting and interesting to watch. And the thing with Brighton as well is when they make these sorts of signings, they don't often miss with these signings, as it were. That sorry, hold on a second. And yeah, so my next player I plan to look at is Archie Gray. Now, this is going to be the most well-known player on this list. However, he's still very, very young. So obviously 18 years old. He sort of broke out through Leeds last year. Sort of being able to play, primarily playing as a midfielder, although did get a lot of minutes as sort of a makeshift right back. So signed by Spurs for 40 million. Championship Young Player of the Year. Cocked up 47 odd appearances, a mainstay in a Leeds team that sort of did very well in the Championship. Obviously didn't quite get over the line. He's someone that sort of got a lot of, sort of technically is very sound, sort of very good, and you believe he's sort of going to start making that potential step up. Obviously having a lineage of sort of family members that have been involved in football sort of previously, people like Andy Gray and so on like that. So this is someone that I think people are very interested on. He's sort of in the England under-21s now, I believe. Obviously he's going to have a bit of an issue potentially breaking into that squad, but should he get into it, I don't think he'll get budged out of it very easily. Obviously, hopefully he doesn't get overawed by the Premier League or some other quality within the players and themselves. So, next one, sort of fun one for me. I've got Amari Hutchinson. Obviously, Ipswich signed him from Chelsea for sort of roughly £20 million plus all the various add-ons and buybacks and what have you. So, a 20-year-old sort of winger who can play across that sort of front three, the sort of left, right, or through the middle, which he was towards the end of the previous season. Racking up 10 goals and 5 assists, sort of a lot coming in that second half of the season, having taken a little bit of time to adapt to the league. Sort of very skilly, sort of good, sort of low centre of gravity, can sort of cut inside, can get his shot away. He's sort of very easy on the eye. Obviously, he's definitely going to be a mainstay within the Ipswich team, having been there towards the end of last season. He knows the system, he knows the manager. I mean, the manager himself said at because it was, I think it was his birthday around the end of the football season. So what would you like for your birthday? It was like Amari Hutchinson. So the club forked out for him the most expensive signing Ipswich have made since it was Matteo Serini quite a while ago. So very excited, very interesting player. And if Ipswich do end up staying up, it will be in no small part down to the sort of ability to sort of get forward from Amari Hutchinson. Next player is probably going to be the oldest person in the list, which we're also linked with, is Philogene. Now, he obviously had a good strong season in the Championship as well. 12 goals, 6 assists, 22-year-old sort of winger. He can sort of play both sides. Obviously gone to Aston Villa my worry with him is whether he sort of starts regularly for Aston Villa. However, I think Aston Villa also have they'll have potential for a lot of game time with European competitions, World Cup competitions, or sort of the Prem. So I do believe he will get minutes. Whether he's going to be the starter or not, this is going to be a test of sort of his character and ability to sort of lock down one of those sort of spots on the wing, competing with sort of experienced people like Leon Bailey, who had sort of good spells last season, and Morgan Rogers, obviously a young player sort of Villa got from the Championship last year as well. So next one, I think it's one of my younger ones. I've got Ethan Nwaneri from Arsenal. So back in September 2022, he became the youngest player in Prem history. He plays as a forward primarily. He sort of got 11 goals in the Premier League 2, so that's sort of like the reserve-ish sort of under 21 sort of league, averaging 0.97 goal contributions per 90, which I think sort of very good. Obviously, that Arsenal team is very difficult and hard to get into, but I think Arteta sort of trusted him to get sort of minutes. I think obviously Arsenal there's a lot of minutes there to potentially to be got at through all the competitions that they are in. My worry is that it's sort of how big of a jump is it going to be to sort of get sort of from the sort of the competition he's been playing against to trying to establish yourself in a team that's challenging for the title. However, I think there's someone that should be looking at getting more minutes. He hasn't gone out on loan, so there has to be some faith there and potentially some guarantees from Arteta that there will be minutes there for him. So he's someone that I definitely want to keep an eye out from, someone that their staff obviously back quite a lot. I've got my next one. I've got Jay Stansfield from Fulham. This is a striker who's been out on loan in the Football League for a couple of years, sort of loan spells at Exeter and more recently Birmingham, in a arguably struggling Birmingham team last season, obviously going down. Sort of getting 12 goals in the 43 appearances there, so potentially not necessarily having a great deal of service. Obviously Birmingham, with the money and the backing from people like sort of Tom Brady, are trying to make that move permanent to League One. Whether he goes or not, I don't know. I personally believe he can do better than League One. I think he's proven that. I think he's still very young, sort of 21 years old. I think no one's necessarily nailed down that striker spot at Fulham, so this is a great potential for him. Obviously, he won't start, but so you had sort of Muniz and Raul Jimenez as sort of potential people last season. Or I don't think they'd have hot spells and cold spells. Haven't nailed down that striker spot. I feel that's up for grab. I think sort of a young, sort of hungry player. I think being surrounded by sort of better players, having better service at Fulham, can potentially sort of kick on and sort of do sort of well at the Fulham squad, I believe. If not, he should be looking at top end Championship, low Prem. I think at the minute is where I can sort of see him. I want to see him sort of in better squads, better teams to see how well he can perform. Next player I've got is Abdul Fatawu from Leicester. So he was at Leicester last season on loan from Sporting CP. They've obviously made that move permanent. So 20-year-old sort of Ghanaian winger. So he's got 6 goals, 13 assists. He manages to, I think he created 32 big chances, which was the most recorded in the second tier. So he's clearly a sort of good creative force there, who's looking more at the pass rather than the finish, as it were. So how well he looks might potentially depend on who else is joining him with the attack. But considering he got a regular amount of minutes at Leicester, I firmly believe he'll get them again. And it was a smart move from Leicester, obviously, in the first place, because he had a big hand in helping them get promoted in the first place. Be able to see what he can do against sort of the tougher opposition. He's still sort of very young, sort of very creative player. How well he does against the Prem defences, we'll see. But he's someone that shouldn't be slept on at all. Next player I've got is Toby Collier from Man United. He's not an attacking player. He's sort of primarily played as a CDM, as it were. Now, he hasn't managed to break into the actual first sort of team too much, sort of obviously last year. However, he's been looked at by the United staff and squad throughout pre-season. I think he was given the captain's armband against one of their friendlies against Rosenborg, I believe. He's someone that's thought of very highly, and I'll be honest, the last player they thought very highly of was Kobe Mainu, and he's obviously managed to break through and establish himself in that first team. I think United's squad in itself is a little bit thin, particularly in the midfield area, and as well as sort of an actual defensive unit, because I think Casemiro is his injury record's a bit patchy at the moment, and his injury record isn't necessarily very good either. So he's thought of very highly at Cobham, sort of considered sort of very well for his sort of work ethic, sort of running ability, and sort of discipline as well. Having a defensive sort of unit would be very good. So this, if he manages to get through, this could save United a lot of money. And if they don't end up making the signings of Ugarte, he could be someone that might solve sort of a few issues. Obviously, be given a good bit of time by the fans as well. So they'll obviously like the idea of sort of a fresh player coming through. Obviously, I think he's believed to be an 8, but can work in the defensive sort of position. He likes to sort of pick the ball up from the defence and move forward with the ball. So next one I've got Jayden Dans. Obviously he's related to Neil Dan, sort of used to play for Crystal Palace. He's at Liverpool. He's managed to sort of get a few cameo appearances at Liverpool last year, notably in like the League Cup final, in some of their games in the FA Cup. He's someone that's very much on the periphery, as it were, and if Liverpool haven't necessarily made too many signings, which they haven't yet, this could be an opportunity for him to get minutes if he's managed to impress Arne Slot. So statistics aren't sort of as impressive, sort of 3 goals and 2 assists in Prem 2, but that's partly down to the fact he's only played 7 matches, because he's clearly believed by Klopp previously that he could get into that or have a part to play within the actual senior squad. So it's good to sort of see if he manages to kick on as sort of a forward player. Obviously, it's quite tricky to. One strength of Liverpool is that forward line. So if he manages to sort of get minutes potentially in some of the cup competitions and manages to sort of to push on, hopefully we can sort of see a bit more of him. And my final one, I've got George Earthy from West Ham. He's a 19-year-old midfielder who managed to get 10 goals and 9 assists in the Prem 2 last year. He was awarded Young Hammer of the Year. He did start to get a couple of minutes for West Ham last year. However, had picked up an injury which was sort of believed to be quite serious. Obviously, he's going to be back fully fit for this coming season. And so with a new manager, gives an opportunity to impress, and so could work his way into potentially being a bench option and then trying to get into that midfield, or maybe obviously looking at form of other midfielders and sort of injuries and so on. But this is someone that sort of is thought of very highly and has the potential ability to break into the squad, into the main team. Cool. So if I've missed anyone, let me know. Thank you very much. I'll catch you later.